Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. Hey, what is going on, guys? And welcome to my live stream. Still waiting for people to come into the chat, and then we're gonna get started. So what I'm planning today is to make a live stream about how to create a form. Actually, this is the form that we're going to create using only JavaScript. So we're going to create each element in JavaScript, and we're also going to style it in JavaScript. And when we're done, then it's going to look something like this. We can then insert a name. Let's just type in my name, Norbert. As you can see, the first name disappeared and it appeared on the right side. Actually zoom in. Okay, then we can enter last name. Then we can enter date of birth. Let's say February 15, 1986, which may or may not be my real birthday. Let's say that I'm married. Let's confirm this. Let's say children are Bella, Karina, and David. And that's it. We can click on. Okay, let's enter a zip code for the address. Let's enter city. The city. No, let's enter Sin City. Sin City. Let's enter street. Elm Street. And the number 13, of course. Okay, we can enter a context or phone number, some kind of phone number, mobile phone number, and a email address. norbert@mail.com, and boom, that's it. Okay, so that's pretty much it. We're going to create everything that you see here using only JavaScript and materialize CSS because I'm not going to style each and every one of those input tags and also buttons. So if you can hear me, is this loud enough? Actually, you should let me reset something here. Not that one. Let me reset these right here. You can see my face, my beautiful face. Okay. So let's create an empty folder anywhere on our desktop, let's say. Folder, let's call it create a form. Let's call it create a form. So enter. Now I don't know what you're using, but I'm fed up with this damn OS system from Mac. It's not ideal for me, let's just say. I'm an old time, had a couple of years of using Windows, actually since I have over 20 years of Windows, and now I'm using Mac OS. Not satisfied at all with it. So let's just drop this in here. Also using Visual Studio Code for our code editor. Boom, let's make this larger. And let me also show you the extensions that I'm using. So what are most important? Let's say better comments. If you want to insert some kind of comments. Code spell check for me, extremely important. I'm a moron, I can't spell. Materials, well, I have a skin installed. I have some themes installed. If you wish, let me show you. I could change my theme so it looks more like a beginner theme. Let's say I'm going to create the index.html, and let's create a boilerplate. So this is basically the HTML theme. Let me also show you the JavaScript theme. Let's create just the main.js because we need to create something else then later on. So const, let's say form is equal to document. What am I doing? Document dot get element by ID. This ID doesn't exist. You can see our form, let's say yada yada yada. Let's say form. Now I'm selecting the form. It's gonna stay white, okay? So if I would, let's add an event listener. Add event listener. I'm also using Emmet, as you can see. It's an event listener of submit. And then a arrow function. Okay, so and let's console log this. Console log form. Console log something. Alright. Now you could change this. Let's say you wish to change this to, let's surf through this a bit. Darker theme, more lighter theme. What I like is actually the default dark plus from Visual Studio Code, and I mainly like it because I have all of my, well, let me show you. Const and let, if I would create here let name is equal to, just initialize it. They have a bit of different tonations, and as soon as let me comment this one out. As soon as something is used, that is also colored in a different way. So I basically like this skin the most, but use whatever you want. Okay. Another important thing, I'm going to use, let's actually go in here, modules, JavaScript modules. And this is because, let's create a folder modules. Because I'm going to create actually 4 JavaScript files. So first of all, let's create within our folder a form.js. And within this form.js, we're going to import 3 things. Let me get a sip of whiskey, first of all. Excellent whiskey. And this is because our JavaScript will be immense. It will be approximately 700 lines of code. And I don't want to have everything cranked up in one place. So we're going to create one file for form. Let me also numerate them. 01 form components.js. Then there will be a second one called form style.js, and the last one where we're actually going to create our, we're going to grab onto our create our user input. This is going to be 03 user, actually create user .js. Boom, there we go. So let me delete this main and let's go back to our HTML. Now first things first, let me create here an h1. Should just call this new user. Okay, boom, that's it. Let's open it up using live server. And it opened up in the wrong place. No problem. I'm going to take you and snap you in here. Come on, boo-boo. So, let's make this a bit larger, not that large. F12 to open up the console. And I know, not important. Now let's also include Material CSS. So Materialized CSS, as you know or may not know, is a CSS framework. Now if you go to materializecss.com, you can grab onto the CDN of Materialize. I'm actually going to do this. I'm doing this mainly because I don't want to style input text, to style buttons and so forth and so on. It's redundant. Don't need to do that. We just need to create our form here. Hello, Ryan, and welcome to our stream. So, hey Ryan, if you missed it, we are creating a form only from JavaScript. So we're not going to do any kind of HTML in here. We're going to create a form using only JavaScript, style the form using JavaScript, and then get our inputs and export them using also JavaScript. And we're also going to use modules because it's going to be a bit long. So let's go back to our code. And first of all, modules. If you never use modules, basically we can use modules by, normally you would do something like script and source and the JavaScript file. That's great, but we also need to give this a type. So script needs to have a type of module. Okay, and now we can use modules. Now we also need to tell it where our module is, and we're going to target our form here. So this is going to be the main JavaScript file that we're going to use. So form / because I did put it into a folder, and form.js. Okay, so we got this linked up. So if I go in my form.js and say console log me, and it's working. Okay, let me also zoom this in a bit. Hello, Abdel. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Okay, so let's go back to this. By the way, tell me if the font size is enough for you. Could increase it a bit. That's huge. If you can read this. Sounds good. I've been looking for YouTube today and refreshing DOM manipulation. Woohoo! Welcome then. Have a sip of whiskey. If you're minor, don't drink. I'm 35 years old. Maybe. Okay, so modules. Let's go to our form component and let's say console log I am a module. Okay, let's hit save. Nothing happens. Now, in order for us to import and export modules, we basically need to do a couple of things. Wait just a second. So we can export and import anything. We can export and import functions, variables, so far and so on. But I'm going to use here the function keyword, and let's say function my export, open and close curly brackets, and let's cut out this console log, put it in here. Still nothing happens. Let's go here and say export function. So I'm just typing in the keyword export before the function keyword. And now we need to go back to our form, so to our main.js. And let's go up here. Let's say import. You already see the keyword import is popping up. Now open and close curly braces, curly brackets. And within here, we need to tell it what it should import. In our case, we will import my export. Okay, and we also need to tell it from where we're going to import it. Now, we need to open and close. Actually, this should be double quotes. But I have set my Visual Studio Code to automatically transform single quotes into double quotes. Okay, so dot / and now we are in our folder. And from here, I'm going to choose our 01 forms component.js. Okay, And now we can use our function. So if I would say I could initialize my function my export, open and close, and boom, I am a module. Woohoo! So basically that's how we import and export. Once again, if you want to export something, we need to type in the keyword export before whatever we wish to export. I could also, let's show you another thing. Let's say const, and this const is variable export. I'm doing this on the fly, so export, and I'm going to assign this variable to that function up there, my export. Boom. Now I'm going to go back into my form. Actually, you know what? Let me create a second one. Let me create a second function, export to. I am also a module. Okay, and this is going to be export to. And we're going to take this variable export, go into our form, and do the same thing. Let me paste this in between curly brackets. Say import. Whoa, come down here. Import. Going to import our variable export from double quotes /component.js, and we can now go down here and we get an error. Does not provide an export name variable. Wait a second. Export. Let's go back in here. What did I do wrong? I didn't initialize. Okay, didn't initialize the function. Boom. Still not correct. My export to function export form, importing our variable from there, and this is actually I should console log this. It's not the function. Console log. Does not provide an export name variable export. What? Why? From okay, it seems that I did something wrong and I just can't figure out what I did wrong. Const, there's a const. That's what I did wrong. Undefined, yeah, whatever. Actually, well, the problem was I didn't call upon the export keyword, so sorry about that. The font size is good. Woo! Thank you. So that's the way we export and import. Let me delete everything that we have within here. Hit save, go back to my form, and delete everything from here. Boom. So first things first, let's create a form. Now I'm going to automatically pack everything into an export function. I'm going to call this create form. And close parenthesis. And everything within this JavaScript file is going to happen within this function. Okay, this function actually just exports our file. So if I would say here console log import, okay, and I typed this into my form, cut it out, go to 01 and paste it in here. So export, going to copy this, go back to our form, import, what should we import? Create form from ./.js, and boom. Let's just create form, initialize the function here, initiate and import. Okay, so this is working, and now we can start doing our thing within here. First things first, I'm going to comment this out, hit save, nothing else is showing now, and let's create our const of form. We're going to assign this to document dot what am I doing? Create element, and we're going to create a form element. Now, if you may or might not know, okay, let's also console log of form here. Hit save, and there we go. There's our form down here. Now, you may or may not know, but you could also add to the form, let's say, attributes, and we do this by attribute. All right, an attribute, not get attribute, set attribute, exactly. And first things first, we need to tell it what kind of attribute it is, and let's say we're going to set it a action, and then the action will go nowhere. Okay, and if you take a look in our form now, so remember this console log is going to constantly show me my form, and now we have an action within our form. We can also give it an ID. Let's give it a form ID of, so ID is equal to form. Let's use capital letters, form. Okay, now it also has an ID. Good. Okay, next up we're going to give our form a title. So let's go up here. Let's create a const. Let's call this form title. I'm going to create now another element. So document dot create element. I'm going to create here h1. Now we're going to grab onto our title and replace this new. How can I do this the best way? Yeah, I could replace it. So let's go to a document. Let me actually console log something first of all. Console log document dot get element, not get element, query selector. Let's use query selector. I'm going to select from our DOM our h1. We already have an h1. Okay, there's an h1 new user, and now we can take this. I'm going to leave it in here. Take this and let's say dot inner text. We're going to replace the inner text with, say, create user. Boom. We just modified our h1. I'm actually going to comment this title out. We don't need it right now. Wait a second, I need to modify something here. So let me take this one out. Okay, let me set it up here. Boom. So I can also see your comments. Does anyone have questions until now? No questions? Okay, now let's continue on. Now we're going to create our first name. So let's type in here comment. And as I said, I'm using better comments. Let me show this again. Extensions, better comments. Now these better comments are as following. Can I zoom this in? Well, comment.star is a green one, comment.exclamation mark is a red one, question mark blue one, to do is a orange one, and so forth and so on. So it depends on how you're using it. I'm using comments, for example. Ooh, it's a bit too much. So let's say if something is really important, I'm going to use an exclamation mark in order for me to pop out. Boom. Okay, first name. Some things will be extremely repetitive, but this is also the idea. The idea here to do as much DOM manipulation as we can. This is only concentrating on DOM manipulation. Okay, first name. Const. Let's create. I'm going to pack everything. So each label and input I'm going to pack into a container. So let's create the input container first name. Let's go document dot create element. Boom. There we go. I'm going to create a div. Save, and let me actually create a bit more space here. So document create element. We created a div. Now, blah, 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 blah. Let me think about it. I didn't assign the form. Yeah. So first things first, I'm going to go to the document dot body. So let's grab onto the body, and we go append child. We're going to append a child, and we're going to append our form. Okay, so it's time for us to see something in here. We didn't create anything until now, but each time we're going to create something, we're going to append it to the child. So I can start with form dot append child, and I could append our input container first name. Boom, there we go. So the div should be now in the, there we go, there's a div. Yeah. Next up, so let me type in here comment append form to the body. Okay, next up, let's create each input. So each input that I create here is also going to have a class, because I'm going to take all of those classes and give them a bit of an animation. That's actually where we're going to use a tinge of CSS. As you saw in our finished, where's our finished project? There's our finished project. Our finished project, if I refresh here, as soon as I type something in here, Norbert, boom. You saw that animation that's happening, that is created using JavaScript. So let's go back in here. That's another project. Why did I close this up? Go away. Have too many things open. Okay, so next up, let's give this container a class, so this div, and we're going to choose input container first name dot class name in order to give it a class, and we're going to assign it a class name of input container. Boom. So as I said, each input container is going to form here. It's going to have this common input class. So this class is common class of input container, and also another class. So let's grab onto the input container and type in class list of what this container actually represents. So let's say dot add, and we're going to add the name for this specific container. So the class name for this specific container is going to be first name dash name. Okay, so we have this. So now we can, let me check it. Form, there's an input container first name. Okay, it has two classes now. Let's go down here. Now let's create a label. So const, let's create another variable with the keyword const. Let's call this label, and I'm going to call it first name. And we're going to assign this. Let's create an element. Create element. We're going to create a label element. Now let's take our label element, first name, and append child of. We're going to go to the document, and this time we're going to create a text node. So create text node, because I wanted to have an inner text to it. and we're going to call this one first space name. Okay, since I do this, I should actually see something here, and I'm not seeing here anything. Oh, because now comes the important part. We're going to take our input container first name dot append child, and we're going to now append the label to our container. So label first name, hit save, and there we go. There's our label. Any questions until now? Okay. Next up, let's also create our input tag. So let's go down here. Input container first name, boom. Okay, now let's create another const of input first name, and again we're going to use document dot create element, not attribute, element. We're going to create this time a input tag. Save. And now we need to assign it an attribute because this tag needs to be a type of. So let's grab onto our input tag of first name, and let's set attribute. And as I said, first thing is the type of attribute. Then we need to set the type of the attribute, which is type in our case, comma, and text. There we go. Okay, now we need to take our input container first name again and append our first name input first name, and boom, there we go. There's our input tag. Now I'm not going to do any styling in this particular part right now, so let's go this way. We are going to do this in a different file. I could do already a bit of styling, so let's go to our second file. So we had four files. We have 01, the form component.js, then the second one form style.js, the third one create user.js, and the last one is the form where we are importing our JavaScript files. So let's go here in our form and let's start up with an export function, and we're going to export a function of form style. And every style element that we're going to create within here is actually we're going to create everything within our form style function. So let's go on to a form, and for this we need to create a const. Let's call it form, and let's say document dot let's use query selector, and we need to grab onto our form that we created. So grab onto the form. I could also grab onto the ID. I think I gave it an ID of form, but I'm grabbing onto the tag right now. So I can now say form dot style and dot width. I'm going to set the width of this to, let's say, 350 pixels, and boom. And also we need to now we need to go back to our form and do the same thing that we did up here. So I'm going to grab this, import the form style, and we're going to import this from / our form function and initiate it here, and our form is only for 350 pixels. Okay, let's go back to our form component. So we got our first name. Now I'm just going to take everything that we did for our first name and copy it and paste it in, because it's basically the same thing for the last name. So if you do not know this command, if you double click on a word, it's going to select it completely and also going to highlight that specific word in the entire text, in the entire file that you have open. And now if you hold down Command on the Mac and Control on a PC, so hold it down and then D is going to select the next one, and then D, 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 and last name. Hit enter and there we go. Just created another one. So great code, huh? Great whiskey. So next thing, what, I have so many things open. Don't need you, don't need you, don't need you. Maybe I need you. Definitely don't need you. And also form, we don't need you. Form component. Okay, so we created our first name, we created our last name. Next thing, let's create a date of birth. Birth. We have a birthday. Let me check this a bit. Yeah, it's almost the same. So I could just copy this. So everything that we had in our last name, let's change the comment here of date of birth. Okay, this contain last name. Did I change it? Last name, yep. Okay, so this will be, instead of last name, I'm going to replace this with so Control D or Command D. Select everything that we had here and let's type in here D-O-B. Boom. Now we still need to change a couple of things. Also, last name, this is okay. It's a div. It has a class list. The class list is not last name. The class list is DOB. Then the label, this should be date of birth. The label is append child, append the label to it. You can see we already have it here. But now we need to change the type to date. And as soon as we do this, boom, there's a date. Okay, now after our input dob set attribute, I also want to give this a ID. So input dob.id is equal to capital DOB. And actually that's basically it for our input tag. Next thing is marital status. So if you wish to get married or not, we still need to create this. Let me check if this is the same. Almost. Let's type in a comment. Marital status. So I'm going to copy a couple of things. We can grab onto this, the input contain. I'm just going to change this to a marital status. Okay, next up we're going to take our input container of marital status. So it's basically the same thing that we did up here. Let's copy this. Let's replace this. Class name is, as always, first class name is input container, and then we're going to change this to marital status. status. Okay, after this, we can now create our label and our input tags. But let's first of all create a label, because I did do something a bit different with our marital status. They are in, let me show you in the finished project. Why don't I grab onto the finished project and put it down here, grab onto this, open you up, you go in here, you go back there, and this is the finished project. Okay, so this is our marital status. As you can see, there are actually 3 labels with 2 radio buttons and 1 check mark, because the idea behind this is to have, well, you could be not married, you could be divorced, but you could also, so you could be not married or you could be married, but you could be divorced and not married, and you could be divorced and remarried. So if you have divorce checked and one of these 2 checked, and also as you can see, when I'm clicking on the label, it's also targeting the checkbox. So yeah, and then we need to click on confirm, so one of this, and as you can see, divorced and remarried will appear at our status here, at our marital status. In order to achieve this, I need to pack things into different containers and then grab onto, then start manipulating through the DOM through using what do I use there? Siblings, child siblings. So wait just a second. So let's go back to our project. We got a marital status to const. Let's replace this with marital status, and also here also append it. Now the text will be marital status. Okay, so we have this. Now let's go under our input tag, and let me actually grab, what are you doing? Go here. Okay, let's go underneath of this one, and now we're going to create the container for our marital status, for our different states of married, divorced, not married. Okay, let's type in here comment of marital status container, or yeah, marital status container. It's going to contain the state of your marital status. It's dumb. I didn't think about the better name. Woo! Marital status container. Though this is the marital status container of the status. I know it's dumb. So let's create another const. And we're going to call this one input container check marital status. It's complicated, believe me. Input container check marital status. And we're going to create a div. So let's go here, equal to document dot create element, and we're going to create a div again. Div. Now we can grab onto this and give it a class. Class name, and we're going to give this the class name of, you guessed it, marital status container. Status and container. Okay, so what basically this does is contain those two check radio buttons and that 1 check mark. Pum, 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 pum. So the first thing will be married. Let's create a const. Let's create first of all a label of married. And now go to document.create element, and we're going to create a label tag. Okay, let's grab onto our label married. Let's give it a to mess up something here. Huh. Strange, strange, strange. Now, nevertheless, I could give this a HTML4 married. Then I'm going to give it an ID, so label married.id, and we're going to give it the ID of married. You know what? I'm going to copy this married. I'm going to still use it a couple of times. So then we're going to have a input, not the input. What am I doing? This shouldn't even have the ID of married. Now this right here is for. Where can I show you this? Let's do it here. So label this right here. This 4. This is what this is doing. Okay, so HTML4, because as I showed you here, when I'm clicking, let me refresh actually. When I'm clicking on the label, it's also activating the check button or the radio button. And this is achieved by assigning the label a 4 and the input tags for the input tags ID. Basically, this would look something like this in HTML. So for, let's say first name, and input type of text, and if I give this ID of first name, this will basically, oh, can't see this anymore. This would target, this label would target this input tag. Okay, whatever this input tag is, even if this is a checkbox type of checkbox input tag. Okay, so let's go back to our JavaScript. Leave a comment if you knew that. Please, just tell me in the comments. Did you know that? Because I was looking like a madman for this. I knew that this one existed, but didn't know how it was called. So tell me in the comments. Did you know about this property? Okay, next up. So married. Let's also give it a text. So label dot append child, and we're going to append document dot create text node, and we're going to create within here, also close the parenthesis, married. Boom, there we go. So marital status. Sorry about that. Okay, now let's grab onto our input container marital status. We need a check one. We need you, buddy. Let's dot append child of label married. And down here, we also need to append this input container check material status to the input container marital status. check append child exactly, and we're going to append at the end everything to. Let me actually do this down here. So form dot append child. We're going to append our input container of marital status. And to this marital status, we also need to append all of our, need to append the input check marital status. So input container marital status dot append child, and we're going to append our input container of check. And there we go, there's our label of married. Okay, next thing, let's go back to our label and let's also create our input tag. So this would be the married label. Let's copy this and type in here another comment, married input. Okay, now I need to create another const, input married, document dot create element again. We're going to create an input tag. This input tag will have input married. We're going to give it a set attribute, so we need to type, and the type will be radio. Okay, it also needs a ID, so I'm going to copy this. It's actually the ID that it needed, and it needs a value. I'm just going to copy this, replace the ID with value, and the last thing that it needs is a name. So let's also copy this, replace it with name, and let's give this the name of marital status. Okay, so we also need to append it Actually, there's something different here. So let's create a const of married or not. Because this married or not married will be in a separate document dot create element. I'm going to create this time a span tag. And within the span tag, we're going to include our married or not dot append child. We're going to append our label of married, and then we're going to append, so married or not, append the child of input married. And there we go. Now I could just copy this married and also create our not married. So I need to copy this entire thing. So I'm just going to select this married type here not married. This is the not married label, and also the not married input. Let's see how. Okay, the stream is going on for an hour now. We're going to finish this, so this part with the creating the entire form, and then we're going to take either a break and going to continue on tomorrow. We're going to create the style of the form and also the output. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. So let's continue on. So not married, not married, not married. We just need to replace everything that has married. So let's select the married label. Bum, 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 bum. Actually, the word married. Married. Control D or Command D. And everything that has married within it. Going to add a not to it. So let me verify this label. Okay, if HTML not married, then input blah 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 not married. Okay, for the tag we need a space here. Input type radio. The ID is not married this time. The value is not married. Name not married. State no, we need here married status. All three of them will have the same name here. But what we need is a input not married dot checked status, and we're going to set this to true. Basically this one is checked. Now a small problem with our radio buttons here is that Materialized CSS will not let you see them. They're actually positioned absolute and have an opacity of 0, believe me. So let's go ahead and create a style tag, a style file. Let's go back into our folder. Let's create a style.css. Let's go to our HTML and also include it. So link style.css. Hey, for all you newcomers, welcome to the stream. Say hi. Okay, now let's go into our CSS. And well, let me first of all do a general reset. So reset, let's reset comma or befores or afters. Let's reset the margin to 0 and also the padding to 0. That's all I need to do for now. Okay, if I'm here, let me also style the body a bit. So body, let's give this a font family. Let's use this one for now. I'm going to change up the font family later on. Okay, let's change the background color to a hexadecimal color of 01202C. Let's change the color of the input text to a white color #FFF. Let's increase the letter spacing to 1.5 pixels. And let's position everything as relative. Okay, let's also give this a margin, top and bottom 3 rem, and left and right 2 rem. And let's give the entire text a text shadow of 1 pixel, 2 pixels, 1 pixel, and a hash of 333, which is just dark color. The text pops out just a tinge. Okay, now as I said, I want to take care of our inputs. So input, we're going to select this time the type of check. let's say checkbox. And that's not all, comma, also the input with the type of radio. And there should be a comma here. So both of them, let's position them relative, and we also need to use the important keyword. Important. Because if we don't use this, the Material CSS is going to overwrite it actually. Now next up, we're going to set the opacity to 1. Hit save, nothing happens. If I use important, the important keyword again, then, hey, where are they? I should see them. Huh. Where are my radio buttons? Hello. Nevertheless, we also need the pointer event of all and important. Boom. Checkbox, radio, type. That's odd. This should have worked. Where's our married? Isn't our married appearing? Form. Let's see. Not married. Input married. Married? They're married? Where are you? Hey, by the way, how's the stream warning sign? Is it okay? Not that okay? You can give me a bit of an insight on how sound and video is working. It seems that I'm having a bit of a problem with the stream. No data. Oh. Not good. Not good at all. Trouble with the internet I'm having, Yoda would say. Okay everyone, sorry, but it seems that the stream is just not performing at all. Seem to be having problems with YouTube. I think I'm going to leave the stream, stop the stream here, and I'm going to come back tomorrow and maybe it's working or something. So sorry about that. I'm going to also type this in the comments. Sorry, stream not working. Back tomorrow. Same time maybe. Okay, so hey, thanks everyone for watching. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.